Tribe, Book 2, Todd Mills Mystery. Author, R.D. Zimmerman. Publisher, Scrib Pub, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 34. She'd never thought about it, but Suzanne had no idea how hard it would be to rent a car. First of all, she was only 19, so every one of the girls said they couldn't have been any older than her. At every single one of the car rental agencies said she was too young. Secondly, they all said she had to have a major credit card, which Suzanne most certainly did not. Her father and every one of the elders considering such things far too worldly. And thirdly, she needed to have a driver's license, which of course she didn't have either, because after all, whoever needed, let alone wanted, to leave the congregation? It was just so frustrating. She'd managed to get her dad's car to the airport, fly all the way to the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport, and now how was she going to get to her husband and baby? This couldn't happen. When the very last of the car rental places turned her down, Suzanne, in desperation, had pulled out her wad of cash and dropped it right on the counter. "Here," said Suzanne, shoving a pile of bills at the girl, who, like Suzanne, had a thick mane of bright blonde hair. "I've got lots of bucks. Why don't you just give me a car and keep the extra money for yourself?" On one of the very few television shows Suzanne had ever seen, some crook had bribed a county clerk and gotten some secret information, and Suzanne now saw the temptation burning in the other girl's eyes as that young woman stared at the pile of $100 bills. After a long moment, however, the girl shook her head and snapped herself out of it. No, I can't. That wouldn't be right." "Oh, come on," begged Suzanne, looking as desperate as possible and trying to force her eyes to well up with tears. "I need to get to my baby. She's just a few months old and she's sick." "But you don't understand. I can't take your money because the computer won't release a car to you unless I enter all the proper information and numbers. I'm really sorry. I'd love to help you, but there's nothing I can do unless I put in a credit card and driver's license number." But what am I going to do? "If you've got so much money, why even rent a car? It just snowed a whole lot last night and the roads are terrible. Why don't you just take a taxi?" "Oh," Suzanne, who'd never even been in a cab, hadn't thought of it. "How do I do that?" The girl at the desk looked at her as if she were from Mars and said, "You just go outside to the taxi stand. There's a whole line of them." The girl hesitated, then added, "Are you from out of state?" "Out what?" "Out of state. You act like you don't know anything, like you're from the country. You better watch where you flash that money. This isn't Chicago, but it's not Mayberry RFD either." "Mayberry what?" asked Suzanne, wiping her eyes. "Listen, just be careful with all that money." Oh, okay." Dragging her duffel bag with her, gun packed inside, Suzanne headed out into the cold. Even though there was a double-decker road up above and it was dark down here, they'd liberally spread salt, so it was damp and slushy. Noisy, too, noted Suzanne as she dashed through the traffic, following the signs to the taxi stand, where a guy ushered her into a yellow cab. "Where to?" asked the driver, a burly guy with a dark hair and a dark, stubbly beard. "Minneapolis." "Very good, dear. That's where you just flew into. The Minneapolis. So, don't keep me in suspense. Where do you want to go in this fair city?" "Oh." Suzanne reached into her purse and pulled out the piece of paper, which she calmly unfolded as the cab sped away from the terminal. On it was simply written a name. "I want to go to the Fourth Church of Christ." "That's very nice that you want to go to church. Very, very nice, but where the heck is it? I don't even know where the first or second or third Church of Christ is, let alone the fourth. Don't you got, the address?" "Actually, I don't know, but here's the phone number." "Oh, brother. You from out state or something?" No, I'm from out in Colorado." The lack of address was a problem that proved only a minor delay. The driver took sympathy on Suzanne and called his dispatcher, who in turn looked up the church's address in the phone book, and then they were on their way, speeding along the slushy freeway and into South Minneapolis. "Sorry, I don't know much about this stuff," apologized Suzanne. "I've never even been in a taxi before." "Well, isn't this a grand day in paradise?" Suzanne kind of liked this, sitting in the back and being driven along. It was as if you were famous or something. Here she had a driver, and all she had to do was tell him where to go, and he'd take her there, no questions asked. She didn't even have to try to figure out which direction to go. And with this guy driving, she didn't have to worry about the slippery roads either. The girl at the car rental place was right. This was the thing to do. Peering forward, she saw the little machine up front, saw the numbers adding up. So what? She had enough money to keep this taxi for a whole week, maybe a month. Zeb was going to like this, her arriving in style and everything. It wasn't taking that long, really. Maybe only 15 minutes later, the driver was steering off the freeway and into a neighborhood. I'm going to stick to the main roads because a lot of the side streets haven't been plowed yet. It won't take too long, though. Don't worry. She didn't, and he was right. It didn't take long. 10 minutes later, they were speeding up a street named after a country, France. Cool. A smile blossomed on Suzanne's face. Zeb was right to leave the congregation, and she was right to follow him. Everything was going to be different. Namely, her dad wasn't going to be telling her what to do every second of every day, and everything was going to be good. The taxi driver turned right on a small street that had been plowed, but then he immediately began to slow down. Whoa. What's going on at this church of yours, young lady? Huh? Looks like the police have suddenly found God, too. Suzanne leaned forward and peered out the windshield. Down the block, she could see a small, snow-covered church, but instead of presenting a picture of serenity, Suzanne saw a street of chaos. There were 3 or 4 police cars parked in the snow and cops standing all around over the place. Bright yellow tape was strung from tree to tree, and off to the side a bunch of people in puffy winter parkas were standing around in the drifts, pointing and watching and gossiping. Dear Jehovah, she gasped. She immediately panicked. She'd been right there last night when her father had called Zeb's father and given him the name and telephone number that Zeb had called from. So what had happened? Surely Rick had gone after Zeb, and for sure Paul had gone along too, but they wouldn't have hurt Zeb, would they? Suddenly, Suzanne felt herself wanting to burst into tears. From time to time, disobedient members of the congregation had gotten into trouble for things like reading forbidden books or listening to rock musical stations. And those punishments had ranged from scrubbing the bakery floor to washing dishes for a month to being locked in the prayer closet for up to 6 hours. But what would Zeb's father do to Zeb for taking Ripka and running away? Would he find forgiveness and love, or would he hurt him? A woman in a big tan coat and blue moon boots was walking away from the church, plodding through the deep snow. Suzanne lunged toward her window and desperately cranked it open. Hey, lady! What happened to the church? Begged Suzanne, leaning out of the taxi. Why are the police here? No one was hurt, were they? The woman looked back at all the commotion and shook her head. I've lived here for over 20 years and nothing like this has ever happened. Minneapolis used to be such a safe place. Now just look at what's happened. I mean, what's going on in this country of ours? But what happened? Why, someone was attacked and nearly killed, the cab driver muttered. Oh, charmed, I'm sure. Suzanne stared out the window of the taxi. Oh no, oh dear Lord, Zeb, not Zeb. Almost too frightened to ask with a faint voice, Suzanne asked, Who? The woman said, The minister of all people. They found him in the garage, knocked out and just about frozen stiff. Such a nice man. 3 or 4 people had seen him out shoveling this morning. He was all friendly and everything. We're just hoping he doesn't die. Her hands trembling, Suzanne somehow managed to close the window. The piece of paper, the one with the phone numbers on it. Where was it? Crap, what had she done with it? Oh, Lord Jesus, she whimpered, her eyes beating with tears. Please protect my Zeb and Ripka. Please keep them safe from harm. She snatched the scrap of paper from the seat next to her. Where else could she go? How else could she find them? Here, she said, pushing the piece of paper at the taxi driver. Go there. Go to this place. What? Take me there, to that address. The one that's written down. Take me now, she demanded. Okay, just hold on. I'll get you there, he said, reading the scrap. I know the place. Hurry before someone else is hurt. Not to worry, Ginger. We're on our way. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.